Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Tuesday, January 28th. I have a video, I think, that's up today that won't go up till tomorrow morning. So this video would then go up the following afternoon, like I'm doing it, I'm putting up videos every 26 to 28 hours, and then one day I just take off after like 3 or 4 days in a row. And that seems to be the best model for maximum viewage of the videos, but also keeping enough content up there that people want to watch daily can do that. But anyways, I've been going through it a little bit, a lot of ups and downs, which I'm not going to get into today. But there was a kind of epic comment, a couple comments I want to get to initially. And the first one is, there's some of this leftover stuff about Jesus, which I kind of want to move on from. But this isn't a negative comment. I'm not necessarily like making fun of this comment, but there's things that I want to address in it. So this is the video with the Bush girl dressed up like her grandmother, Don't eat me, Danny. Whatever that, Jenna Bush. Or the other Bush, Barbara. I don't know. Trump and Disney says devil's work is never done. Bitter somebody, lemons, bitter lemons. Which is kind of funny. This person writes, Paul, I feel but can't verify that perhaps Jesus represents the inner light of God or goodness, even though that's not taught that way. When we sin, we move away from the central light which fuels, sustains all things, and we suffer accordingly. In doing so, I lost the comment here. Here we go. In doing so, we move away from central light fuels, sustain, we all suffer accordingly. In doing so, the light seems to dim or die relative to us. It's a question of distance owed to our choices. I believe this relates to the Eastern notion of being centered or close to our light. The Jesus divinity within could be the literal interpretation of Jesus dying for our sins, simply be a misunderstanding of a few different Bible verses. Well, what I've said over and over again, they've made shit up. Like, that's the big deal. But let me address what this person's saying, go back to the beginning of it. I feel that verify perhaps Jesus represents the inner light of God or goodness. Okay, so in the Sajmark system, this is, this is definitely going to be a part of the Journey series, and, I probably should put this up in Gratefullness Meditation, this definition, as maybe a separate little video. But you have within yourself, at your center, like Master Charji, the third master of the Sajmark system, said, one of the ways to define God, and there's many ways, God is love, God is this, this way of thinking about it, like you're trying to explain God to somebody. But God is a circle with his center everywhere and his circumference nowhere. And so what that means in the Sajmark system, you're trying to go to your center. And when you go to your center, you find your divinity. And so you go through all the layers of your periphery, like on your periphery of your personality. I was talking about this with my wife. When you have a loved one who's dying, or you have a marriage or a birth, we go through our mundane lives and we go through our routines. We go on autopilot, right? And, you have these things that shock you, things that are going to stand out, big events, things that scare you, things that make you feel grief or whatever, loss of a loved one, the potential loss of a loved one, the day you get diagnosed with cancer or you have a heart attack or, these things, right? People can get in real poor health and be on death's door for 5 years, and everyone's prepared for them dying because they already dealt with it, right? But when there's a sudden shock to your system, the day you find out something or something big happens, a baby comes into your life, it just feels different. There's a new soul that enters into your existence. Of course, the baby's there, and the soul's there with the mother in utero, but when the baby's born, it's a new person, right? And there's, something where you recognize how much you miss somebody. Like separation does that, right? The separation makes the heart grow fonder. The pain of separation and this idea that you're separated from God, and when you can feel the separation, which I have at different occasions in my spiritual life, it was so painful I couldn't feel it every day. What it feels like, be conscious of the yearning in your heart to reunite with your Creator, your soul's yearning, the longing, the longing of the love that you have for your Creator, and to go back to the source, right? So we have superficial reactions lower level emotions, little frustrations, little whining about, the there's a long line at the airport, or there's, I mean, that would be a little bit different because you don't fly every day, but traffic jams, and just things that the president's doing or whatever it is, little complaints about your people in your life, little things that you think about, smaller things that you feel, little, happiness, little moments. You eat something really, delightful, like, I don't get to use the word delightful very much. You eat something nice, you watch a good game, you get emotionally moved in some way. You've watched a movie, movie that's really good, and it emotionally moves you, right? And you have, like, various levels of penetrating deeper into your field of expression, right? Things that are, it's a bigger day and it's a bigger moment, and you look at your spouse and you feel so much gratitude and love a little bit more than you normally do, something like that, right? I was telling my wife that, as a little kid, I felt whatever love I did for my parents, right? When you're a little kid, it's just there. You're not conscious of your parents being pieces of shit or whatever it is, right? They're just there. And when I was in high school, there was twice I felt love for my parents. And the first one was I was going to soccer practice. I played soccer my freshman year in high school. Then I, was more into basketball. And I watched my mom. My mom wasn't a good cook, and she wasn't like grumpy or complaining, but she was just, she was in some loving state. She's making me breakfast. It's like Saturday morning. I have to go to an early practice. She got up, and she's making me breakfast. And I realized, wow, she does this stuff all the time. Like, she's cooks for me and does all these things. And my heart was filled with appreciation and gratitude. Like, I didn't say anything, which is, she had no idea this happened. But, like, I internally was like, oh my God, I felt love for my mom. Like, just this, sentimental, look at all the work she's done for me. Look at, she just does these things, right? And it just welled up inside me. And then she went on vacation. She went to see my grandmother, take care of my grandmother or something, her mom, in Florida. And me and my buddy had built this zip line. And, I was, really small kid for being in high school. This kid was maybe a year or two younger than me. He lived right behind me. And his grandfather owned this woods. Like, his grandfather walked around, doddering around. He must have been like 120. Like, he would just doddle around. And he was, still farming. He had owned all this land that had now been turned into this, these suburbs, the land that my house was on, and this, this development. And he'd walk around. He'd say to his grandkids, "Pull my finger," and he'd fart. Like, he's like, and he owned all this land. And we built this platform. There's some old buildings, and we took a floor and we built this thing. And at the top where we were going to put the roof, there was a couple of, there was a series of beams, 2x6s or 2x8s or something, that we were going to build walls and put a roof. We never did that. And from there, he had this zip line. And we were too small and weak, we were just didn't weigh enough. We used this cable, like a metal cable, and it went like 50 to 60 feet, maybe even longer. It was long, to the path where there's a circular path around where the woods was, right? And so it was like November, sometime, maybe around Christmas time. I mean, earlier than that, it wasn't snow on the ground, so it was cold enough that I was wearing gloves. And the zip line was totally sketch. And we, neither one of us wanted to jump because we knew it was like fucking scary. But we ended up doing it. And the second time I did it, I fell. And my head hit a rock, and I was concussed. And, I could have died. And so my dad, my friend went out and got my dad. My dad moved me, and my friend's like, "Don't move him." Like, my friend knew more, like, was more, like, my dad was incompetent. And then, I woke up in the hospital, and my dad was freaked out. Like, he was just really freaked out. And, he was very narcissistic and just, kind of a weak and, fear-based person, and just, I just was not somebody who had any deep emotions. Like, I don't know I ever experienced, this is the only time I saw him where I was like, oh, my dad actually loves me. Like, he penetrated beyond his normal narcissism and his normal demeanor, because my mom wasn't there to help out. Like, she wasn't there to take control of the situation. And he was freaked out that he was going to lose me. And that was the only time, right? Like, that was the only time there was any kind of emotion like that. Because, he was just Like, you know how people are, they're just disconnected, right? He was just a sheeple who was, just doing his routine, and he's like a robot going through life. And for a moment, he penetrated deeper out of this thing that happened, right? But those are examples of when you feel something deeper than the periphery, the peripheral experience of where you're just trying to think about what you're going to do for lunch and, how you're going to pay the bills or whatever it is, what you're going to watch for TV, what your day's going to be like. And it's all routine oriented. And there's no in-depth feelings, right? In the Sajmark system, meditating on the heart is a way to penetrate into those in-depth feelings. And you'll notice that as the cleaning process happens, referring to this what woman is saying, but what you're doing is meditating on your spiritual center, which starts in your heart and then moves to these various spiritual points, these points of, I don't want to call them of power, but points of, spiritual accomplishment, and then into what's called the central region, which is your true spiritual center and where you find the divinity within you. The most, divinity is everywhere, but it's most in your center, right? This idea of being centered. And so going back to this line where let me find the comment here. Going back to this line where I feel but can't verify that perhaps Jesus represents the inner light of God or goodness, even though it's not taught that way. Well, a spiritual master in the system, Sajmark system, that's the case, right? Because they've achieved something. But Jesus, he wasn't that far advanced. Like it was more than the normal person. It's, much farther along than the normal person, even though it's one wrong. Like one wrong on the spiritual world, your level of consciousness, your level of everything rises up. So Jesus had, spiritual advancement, but he wasn't at the end. But still, he could represent it as an example of what you could achieve, right? And so this idea, like we call it the master within, but you could call it the Christ within, your inner Christ, right? Your inner Jesus, like his soul. The masters of the Sajmark system never refer to themselves as the master. I mean, this latest guy, this latest piece of shit, Dodgy, that's whatever it is, right? Like, I don't know what he's doing. But even you don't think about yourself as the master. The master within is the essence, the soul of the previous master, because there's been a spiritual emergence, right? Every organization, which they wish would happen in every organization. This is the Buddha reincarnating, the same souls reincarnating back in these Buddhas. They go through a whole process where if they think this kid is a reincarnation of the Buddha, and they find these kids everywhere, right? There was some kid born in Seattle. There's these 3 kids. There's some interesting movies about this. And they put these 3 objects in front of the kid and says, which one is yours? And these kids always pick the right thing. Like there's all these tests they do to find out if your soul is the soul of the Buddha is reincarnated. But it's not a good system because, there should be liberation. Your soul should move on, right? But in terms of like what I'm talking about here, the inner Christ or the inner, the inner master, it's always, or what I was talking about, the emergence that Jesus, which they wished happened and didn't. Jesus would emerge with Peter, right? Jesus would emerge with St. Peter, and maybe you could make a case for St. Paul, but Jesus was already dead. He never met St. Paul. And so, St. Peter was Jesus's representative, and all the lines of popes flowed from Peter. And each, the idea that each pope, the Christ within, the soul of the Christ merges with that pope. Like that's the way it should be. All these spiritual organizations, they have this same kind of idea. They have these lineages. But the Sajmark system, they were actually able to accomplish this by transmitting their spiritual essence into their successor while they're still alive. And so their souls still exist inside the next person in line in the Sajmark mastery. And that happened with this guy Dodgy. He just rejected it in some way. It's like, a spiritual organ transplant that didn't take, right? And so, this is the idea. Like if you think about you're meditating as the Christ within. You meditate on the divine light in your heart. If you're a Christian, this would be the way that you would do the Sajmark system. You're meditating on the inner Jesus, right? You love Jesus so much, he's internalized him. Because you internalize everybody. This merging thing is a little bit different. It's a little bit more advanced. But you have inside of you your mom and your dad. your siblings, your spouse, your kids. You have internal versions of them, right? Like you can think about them and hear their voice. You can think about them and remember things that they said. Like they're inside of you. They're all encompassed in your spiritual, your psychological, your memories and your internal world, right? You have things inside your spiritual world. When you watch a movie, that's now inside of you. Some parts of the movie retain the memory, right? It's part of your internal world now, your stories and all these things. And so that's, this person has like a kind of a good idea about it. The only difference is you didn't meet Jesus. The idea of Jesus you have comes from the Bible and the religion, and it's not, accurate to who he really was. And, the system itself is, the religion itself is, so far fallen. It would be hard to connect directly to Jesus and meditate directly on his soul, not, some fabricated idea of Jesus, right? And so that's why there's all these different traditions where you actually meet people and you connect with them and you feel their soul. And then, ultimately you would feel love for them and you would be able to retain them in your heart, right? In the Mahabharata, there were the five Pandavas. They were the heroes. And one of them, he locks Krishna up in his heart and meditates on Krishna in his heart and to stop him from doing the war. And Krishna says, you got to let me go because we got to do the war. And the guy said, well, you just promised that all my brothers will survive the war. And he said, sure. And he figured out how to stop the Mahabharata, the war, by meditating on Krishna and pulling him into his heart, right? So that's another example of this. But anyways, let's read the rest of the comment. And we suffer accordingly. In doing so, the light seems to dim or die relative to us. It's a question of distance owed to our choices. I believe this is relative to the Eastern notion of being centered or close to the light, the Christ or divinity within. Could the literal interpretation of Jesus dying for our sins simply be misunderstanding a few different Bible verses? Well, really, Jesus didn't have a cleaning process, right? And so, this is why I like my system, the system I do, because the cleaning process cleans away the stuff that blocks your connection to the divinity within, and the transmission enhances it. And Jesus couldn't do those things. He didn't reach that level. He didn't have a system. There was no method. The method that they've given you is that you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and then you get into heaven. Like, that's just some bullshit promise, right? But Jesus himself, he went to the mountain and meditated. Jesus meditated his whole life. The way that Jesus created connection to divinity was through meditation, because that's the way that you do it. Meditation is something that people do all the time. You meditate on things, you just don't know, you don't call it that. It's like you get into a meditative state and you ruminate over something. And so a spiritual person, they meditate over God, or, a divine being is somebody with a higher developed soul, and they meditate. Like you meditate on your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you meditate on, your job in a bad way or a good way or whatever. You have these things, you get into a meditative state. But saints and spiritual people learn to meditate on divinity and the soul within, and that's how they become higher developed people. It's meditation is the process. And in the Christian tradition, they don't teach that because they don't want you doing that. They don't want to control you. If you meditated, you did what Jesus did. You followed Jesus's model. Jesus had a system to connect with the divinity within him. And if you use that system, they wouldn't be able to control you. And so they've kept this information from you. This is secret information they don't want you to know about. Jesus died for our sins is simply a misunderstanding of the different Bible verses. The Bible seems to refer to Jesus as an internal light or external light, the sun, and whatever legendary human may have walked the earth and made a metaphor for the macro and the microcosmic lights. I could simply be wrong, but the Bible makes little sense otherwise, and the verses betray themselves when viewed literally. Either way, I appreciate the perspective you bring to the subject and think your criticism of conventional thinking is valuable. Here's a quote by Thomas Paine that you may be familiar with. The Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which you put a man whom they call Christ in the place of the sun and pay him the same adoration which was originally paid to the sun. Thanks again for your work. Well, the sun is there for your physical existence. So sun worship is totally valid. I have a whole sun thing because of my past life. Like I have a connection to the soul of the sun from a character of the Mahabharata that I believe I was in a past life. every chemical. I think everything that's created in the periodic table is created in the sun. Like all the stuff that carbon and all these things, all these various things that you've. And I don't know much about the periodic table. I saw that in some documentary. But through this process of fusion, these suns are the givers of life. Without suns, there's no life on the material level. But there's plenty of soul life, right? Without sun, there's no light. There's just darkness, right? The color of the central region, the Sajmark system, is gray. It's the balance between darkness and light, because both darkness and light are divine in their divine nature, right? People think of darkness being evil and light being good. Let there be light in the Bible. But, the best times to meditate are at noon when the sun is like at its highest point. And the times that we meditate in Sajmarg are the times between sunset and sunrise. And if you go outside in a sunset or a sunrise, there's a big blue jay outside my window. I think it's a blue jay, or maybe a woodpecker. I can't see the color. Pretty sure it's a blue jay. We have a lot of cardinals and squirrels. My dog usually just stares at them. Tulsi. But anyways, what was I saying? The best time to meditate, you feel a spiritual difference. Like there's a balance in the universe at sunset and sunrises. It's the beautiful color, but it feels different. There's this energy when you go out and you see the sunset and the sunrise. My wife and I see sunrise and sunsets. We often go for walks at sunsets. A lot of times we're not up at sunrise, at least in terms of being outside or something. But there's a balance in the universe. When I first told my brother, my brother's named Peter, so it's Peter and Paul. We went fishing. He had he was on some kind of small little lake in his apartment building, and his youngest son was visiting him. And the three of us went on a little dinghy that he had access to. It wasn't his, and we went fishing. And I told him about Sajmarg, and its sun was setting, and I could feel the energy. And he ended up doing it, even though, he didn't feel the energy, and he ended up doing it and keeping with it. And he was the caretaker of the ashram in Georgia for a long time, and he was really committed to this thing. And there was this moment, right? But there's just a balance in the universe then, right? But all these things, there has to be a method, and Christianity doesn't have a method to connect to divinity. They have a promise. They have a deal. They have a negotiation. You do this for us, we'll do this for you. And it's complete bullshit. It's not uncommon. It's a scam. It's a religious scam. Instead of doing what Jesus did, which was meditate. Jesus 100% meditated. When he was on the mountain for 40 days, when he was in India, he meditated probably every morning. To some capacity, everyone meditates, and he meditated on God, and that's where he got his inspiration. I've experienced this myself. Meditation helps you connect to divinity within you. It opens the door, and it allows divine information and divine energy to flow through you. If you meditate on, properly. There's lots of bad systems of meditation, because meditation can be misused. It can be materialistic. And again, having a proper method. And also, if you meditate without cleaning, you just enhance these negative tendencies. So there has to be cleaning, which is unique to the Sajmark system. So the method is the most important part that separates what I do, gratefulness meditation, what many of us do here. Is there's a method, and following the method and not mixing it with other things is what makes it work. It's like any kind of system, a dietary system. If you do 3 different diets at the same time, it's not going to work, right? You have to figure out a system that works and do the system the way it's prescribed. But this person said a lot of things that are similar to my system. The difference is that there's no method in Christianity, and Jesus didn't have the abilities to do the cleaning and the other things, right? And so, the real thing about sins is that the cleaning process, which is just an enhancement, a minimization of the natural process of experience. Like if you have, we don't look at it as like being sins, but as being impressions, being things that you have to experience. And the experience, if you do it in the right way, then it's removed from your system. But usually people are creating more and more impressions and becoming grosser and grosser. And that veils, that keeps, various levels of spiritual grossness surrounding your soul, and you can't penetrate to the deeper levels, right? And so, That's the difference. Like, that's why I can speak from a different place, because I have meditated, right, for years, in the right way, using the right system, and that has produced results. And so, I've done what Jesus has done. I transcended my religion, which Jesus did. And so many of us who have done this system or other valid systems of meditation, do what Jesus did, right? And then we have results like Jesus did in terms of our spiritual evolution. And those results are, you don't get the results in Christianity because they won't give you Jesus's method. Jesus left a method of what he did, and they scrubbed it from the Bible. The kingdom of heaven is within. They haven't produced these, they haven't emphasized these teachings. And so they've produced this other deal that you're supposed to get. And you don't get it because they're lying, right? And they're using this, Jesus's teachings, which you feel a connection to Jesus, but then they don't give you the real information. Like all these, the Freemasonic stuff where they, until you're the highest level, 33-degree Mason, you don't get the whole story, right? There's these hidden archives in the Vatican, which was documented in those books by Dan Brown, these things, this library. And there's all this secret knowledge that people don't get access to. They have the secret knowledge everywhere, right? And the secret knowledge is not secret in the Sajmark system. Sajmark system, everything that the system does and can do, all the inner workings of it, all the stuff is there. You can read it. There's all in the literature. There's no hiding of the, there's no, if you're a certain level of person, you get a certain level of stuff. Everyone gets the same transmission and cleaning. Everyone gets the same method. I mean, just there's things that are a higher level that you achieve, and then it opens up more access for you based in your effort and your abilities and your predisposition to the thing. But you have access to all of it. It's only based in your performance. You limit yourself by your lack of commitment, right? But everything's there for everybody. There's a time that Master Chargy came up, and people were all sitting there waiting for him. Like there's this fence between him and the people in this cottage. And they're all, they wanted to be with him or whatever. And he opened himself up and said, "Loot me. Take everything that I have. Like there's nothing inside me that I'm withholding from you. Like you guys are all standing there like you're going to get something. But, there's an open door. There's, my heart's open all the time. And I'm willing to give you everything that you have the capacity to receive, right? It's your limited connect. You can say this is what was implied, right? This is the method. You get everything that everyone else gets. There's no, limit to some people who are in some sort of inner circle, right? Only the people that are more committed to the system get more. It's like anything else, right? And that's what God is. God is giving you, God wants you to reach your full potential. We just refuse to do it. Okay, so that's the end of that one. Okay, so the second comment, a little bit more mundane. I hope this is it here. There's a bunch of comments. Houses are extremely flammable and trees are full of water. That's like silly. Houses have various things that don't burn, right? The most common fire for a house is electrical fire. I mean, that's the fire that I would most worry about. But in terms of, there's wood and things that burn in your house, right? There are lots of things that don't burn. And so, when there's a household fire, even without the fire department, you don't see a house fire that would burn a whole neighborhood, right? And of course, the fire department shows up, so that's part of it. But the houses aren't usually going to catch other houses on fire unless you live in one of those city areas where their houses are fairly adjacent to each other, right? And so house fires don't start forest fires, right? Forest fires encroach on civilization, and that they are burning at such a hot temperature, and they're sweeping through the area, right? Like this is the high winds, that everything gets burned. Because, when you have wet wood, if you've ever had like fireplaces or wood burning stoves, and you have fresh wood, it doesn't burn that well. But what does burn is pine and things like this, because the sap is very flammable and some of these other things, right? But, they have this stuff called greenwood. And I was talking to somebody who, they said when they grew up, everyone said greenwood was better wood. Like they have what's called seasoned wood, which has been, dead for a while. and drier out, and it's dried out. But seasoned wood, if it's like, say, you have a snowstorm, which has happened to me. My family had a wood burning stove, and it was our central heating source. And we had a big snowstorm, and we kept the wood outside. We had some dry wood inside the house, but then I had to go get wood that had snow on it. And some of the snow had melted, and the wood was all kind of soaked with water. Even though it was seasoned dry wood, it was now wet again, right? And when you have a really good fire going, you can throw whatever kind of wood in there, and it'll dry it out and burn it, right? And so when you have these infernos like they have in these areas, again, there could be some trees that are left, but that would mean that some of these houses would be left too. But when you see that every house is burned, like it's catching house to house, but it's enough to ignite the house from the outside, which is generally hard to do. A lot of these houses have, various vinyl and other types of siding, whatever these houses have on the outside, and they're all going to be different. They're not conducive to starting a fire, right? You can do it in the internal walls, fires that start in the inside. But to get the fire started on the outside of the house, it's not like the house is covered in tinder. It's not like the house has all this flammable stuff outside. It needs a significant ignition, something that's burning fairly hot already, where there's a lot of heat and there's a lot of, like I said, when you get a fire going, you can throw anything in there. And these fires are supposed to be, sweeping through these neighborhoods, and they wouldn't leave the trees. They would sweep through the whole neighborhood, right? There might be a tree or here or there. You can see it in the forest fires. Once in a while, you see a few trees that have they were burned a lot, but they didn't go up, right? Didn't ignite. This happens with the sequoia trees. They're rot and fire resistant. And some of them there's been some fires there because you find these giant trees when you go to the Sequoia National Forest where there's some fire. They've been burned a little bit, but they didn't catch, right? But those are isolated little forest fires that never really go, there's lots of small fires that never really go anywhere. They're contained to a small area, and a lot of the trees don't burn. But when you're talking about a massive burning down all the neighborhoods and this fire sweeping across large parts of the state, they burn everything. And that's, and that's not happening here. It's not because the trees have more water in them. Some of those trees, they're more resistant than the ponderosa pines and some of these trees and some of the shrubs and things that are more ignitable. I mean, if you've started a fire, you know about kindling, about dry, so getting things that are dry. I mean, you can find good kindling, you can find good, stuff, but there's been a rainstorm and you can't get a fire going because everything's wet. But once you get it going, the wet stuff will burn. And you see like the moisture coming out of the logs, you can hear it sizzle as the thing's burning. It just, vaporizes all the moisture and dries out the wood, the fire does, and then it burns, right? And so, that's what would be happening in those trees. The water that they're getting from, if they're getting watered, those trees, right? If those trees have a lot of water in them, because the people are watering those trees. Again, there's no water in the system. It's like, they limit the amount of water you can use on your lawns and things like this, right? And water is expensive there. Most of these trees probably aren't being watered. But if they are, it's not significant enough. It's not like some time where they're really, they're highly hydrated. They're all suffering from drought, right? And so it's a silly argument, is what I'm saying. But there's another comment here, the one I wanted to get to, which is this one. And the person writes, find the hatred and throw it out of your system. Then he continues to call Trump a piece of shit every day. Got it. Not confusing at all. Like, this is you being a piece of shit, bro. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Because when I say that about Trump, I don't have any hatred for Trump. I don't have any anger towards him. I mean, if he's allowing the murdering of children and these things, I'm not happy with him. I don't like him. Any of these presidents, any of these people who do it, right? Do the things that he's doing. But Trump is a piece of shit. I'm not making something up because of all the things that we know about him. The lies he's perpetrated. Trump is, I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm not, the Sajmark system, people can try it or not. Either works for you or not. Gratefulness meditation, people have tried it. Some people like it, some people don't. A lot of people don't try it. But I'm not selling you it. I'm not profiting from it. I don't gain from it. It's just something that I have benefited from. It may work for you. It may not. Everything else I talk about, I don't care about any of this stuff. I'm not trying to sell you on, being blackpilled or, my point of view. Like, it's just what I see and what I experience. And I don't care whether you believe it or not. And I certainly don't want you to just follow me blindly. And I want the opposite. Like I say, people have to do their own research. I don't recommend things. And I don't benefit other than, some people financially. I mean, so there's been people who generously donate to keep this channel going. There's a membership program, things like that. But those people are getting something out of this, right? They see there's value in what I'm doing, and they realize that, for me to keep on doing this, I need their support, which I'm grateful for. Anything that keeps the channel going and allows me to continue this work, right? I'm grateful for. But again, I don't even hard sell that. I barely ever mention it. I appreciate it when people do it, and I'm lucky that people, find some value in here, and that keeps the channel going in more ways than one. Just not the financial contribution, but the fact that people are benefiting from it, which motivates me to keep on going, right? But I'm not selling you something. Trump is selling you something. Trump is always selling you something, right? And Trump is lying to you because he doesn't give a shit about you. He doesn't think of you as the same as he thinks about his rich friends and people like that. And he doesn't think about them like he thinks about himself. And so Trump is bullshitting you and promising you something he can't deliver. There's no making America great again. That whole thing I just covered in my last video about him dancing to Macho Man and having this Village People reunion. Is that making America great again? Like that shit? Like, there's nothing that Trump is doing that can bring back what he considered a better time. And it wasn't a better time for everybody. It was a better time for him and his business buddies and some other people. I mean, whatever. When Trump thinks about America being great, he thinks about no environmental restrictions, being able to go and do whatever business. He thinks about scamming people. He thinks about the time when people loved him, before he became a politician, and that he bullshitted them and flim-flammed them into investing in him, and he lost their investments, right? He went bankrupt 6 times, and every time he went bankrupt, ordinary people suffered. He didn't pay his bills to those people. And he didn't do that even when he didn't go bankrupt. Like I said, I went to this barber who was a Republican and I'm sure voted for Trump, but he told me that he knew people at Trump Tower and Trump would stiff vendors all the time. He was known for that. He didn't pay his bills. He would renegotiate things. He was always screwing people over. He had this thing called the art of the deal. He prizes himself as a negotiator that negotiates good deals for himself and shitty deals for the other person. He doesn't negotiate deals that work for both parties. He always wants to win. He goes into a negotiation wanting to win. And he's having a negotiation with you. And he's selling you something he can't deliver. He makes promises that he can't deliver. He can't save America. And that's why he's a piece of shit, right? I say that without any hatred. There might be sometimes a little bit of frustration, very minimal type of stuff. But, for this person to really be getting me like they want, oh, yeah, you say all this stuff about hatred. Like, this person's calling me a hypocrite, saying that I throw hatred out of my system. But they're not, either they're lying. I mean, they're certainly lying to themselves because you would have to feel hatred coming from me. Hatred is, you can feel somebody's hatred. You can see when somebody hates somebody else, right? And when Trump does something good, sometimes I laugh at what Trump does. Sometimes I find Trump entertaining, in terms of my emotional reaction. Sometimes Trump does something to provoke the left, and it's very humorous to me, right? But I don't hate the left either. I don't care about any of these people. Like, I just don't. There's no emotional connection there. I mean, if they disappear and I don't cover them, I don't miss them. Slightly. Like I say, I wish I had spent more time enjoying George W. Bush, because he was really a comic. They provide some entertainment. This, the apocalypse, right? But the biggest reaction I get here emotionally is I laugh. I feel, some kind of giddy, or feel like, I feel, I laugh a lot about what's going on and Trump and his people, and, I mock it or whatever it is, but there's no hatred or anger. The anger is very limited, if anything. It's, it's almost non-existent. Only the sense that it's appropriate to feel angry for a guy who allows another country to murder children, or he's making policies in which people are going to suffer. And that's just, we should all feel some anger and some, negative feelings towards that person. But, to characterize what I'm doing as hatred is a lie, right? Like, you could see it and feel it. And so you don't understand the difference, the distinction, like this commenter, or you just want to, you're a Trump lover in your denial of Trump being a piece of shit, you have to like try to call me out on my hypocrisy, right? Oh, you're so hypocritical. You say you throw the hatred out of your system, but you call, I'm not going to fake it like I'm a positive up with person, up with people, kumbaya motherfucker. Like I'm not that. I'm no kumbaya motherfucker. I'm not some, everybody's great, everything's wonderful, some blissed out person. I'm not going to put on some saffron robes or a priest outfit and oh yes, my son, and these acts like that priest or that woman who was a bishop that ragged on Trump, and then she went on Rachel Maddow, and she could tell that she was performing like she was these Christian clergy. They have this way of being where it's like a therapist, right? The therapist, you come in there, and they're not a real person. They put on this role, and they like it's a or even cops and people like that. They put on this mystique, and it's a whole performance. It's performative. And if you really like Trump, then the one thing that you can say about him is he never acted presidential. He acted the opposite. He acted petty, like a little, you know, child at times, eighth grade kid having these Twitter wars. And I love that about Trump. I mean, I love that in terms of the presidency is a joke and it's all performative. And acting like a president, is I don't believe in it, right? Joe Biden tried to act like a president, but he couldn't really pull it off. But he was trying to do it, because he was senile. Had Parkinson's. He was harder, and he can't keep his mouth shut. But they all were upset at Trump not acting presidential, and I like that about Trump. And so if you like that about Trump, then you should appreciate it in me. I don't just because I'm saying these things doesn't mean I'm going to put on some performance like I'm some kind, loving, caring person. Removing my hatred and being kind and loving are two different things, right? Removing the hatred from one system is removing the hatred. That doesn't mean I'm not an asshole still, right? And so, the mocking and things that I do here, there's things that are like hallmarks of my personality, and I work to get rid of those at various times, but there's something that I totally needed to do this job, and people appreciate it. It's just that you're a butthurt Trumper, and when I tell you the truth about him, you can't deal with the truth. You can't handle the truth because you're believing his lies and you've been sold on it. It upsets you when you hear someone call him a piece of shit because it means that you've been duped and you can't deal with that. You can't face up to that, which is, All right, let's get into the other stuff here. All right, I want to get into the Trump AI stuff. I got a thing on Mona Lisa and Fetterman on The View. Hopefully that'll be... I've done the Trump AI thing. I haven't done the Mona Lisa, the Fetterman AI thing, but I think those will all be in this video. But anyways, I was watching the Duke basketball game versus North Carolina State. So occasionally I'll watch college basketball in March Madness, short games, depending on what's going on, right? But I'm not into it like I was, years ago when my friends and I used to play basketball and I was, all those things. And so I saw that there was a Duke game on. I was like looking through the channels, and this guy Cooper Flagg, who was supposed to be some sort of phenom, so I was watching that game a little bit fast. I recorded it and was fast forwarding it after I watched something else. And I was fast forwarding it, and I see there's like 50 to 100 towels all together under the basket. And I went back to it, and they said something about somebody maybe getting sick, and I fast forwarded that. I'm like, wait a minute, did they say someone got sick? And so some player threw up on the court, right? And then I watched from that point on because I wanted to see what was going to happen. And minutes later, I mean, literally minutes, you see all these people are looking at this guy with a hat. He's holding a girl. You'll see in a second. And she's passed out. And she's like gone. I mean, she is just like dead. Like she's a limp doll. Like he carries her off in a weird way. I mean, you can see that here. And I just had something to say about it.
Yeah, it looks like the young lady has passed out here. And they are taking her away. Wow.
So the first part of this is they have the Blue Devil as they're the Blue Devils. They have really crazy fans that do all kinds of antics. But a player, which you never see, threw up on the court. I've never seen a player throw up in a court before. I mean, I didn't see that, but I mean, they were cleaning it up. I don't know if they showed it. I didn't go back to look at it. And within minutes of that, some girl passes out. She's like dead to the fucking world. I mean, like I said, she's like a rag doll. And, people pass out in, you know, basketball games or whatever. But, I don't watch like I said, I haven't watched a college basketball game this season. Maybe partially I've seen things maybe for a few minutes, um, all those types of things. And, you know, like it's fucked up, right? It is fucked up how limp dick she is, and she's just laying there, and the way they carry her out of there. And I was thinking, this, I mean, unless there's no other stories about this, but if this is happening a lot, where all of a sudden people are passing out like this, and, these are things you see in a movie about a pandemic, right? This could be another one.
There's going to be another pandemic.
Sure that we're ready because there will be another pandemic.
Another one, another one, another one.
For the next pandemic, which will happen.
Okay, so there's things about Trump that makes his story compelling. Trump is, Joe Biden with his gaffes, that was a regular comedy occurrence, right? It's not really funny because the guy had, his, he was breaking down mentally, but it was funny because he's president, right? And they're allowing to happen. It's, it's not the I'm an evil person for laughing at a guy with Parkinson's because they won't admit he has Parkinson's and he's president. That's what makes it funny, right? It's on them, not me, right? But one of the greatest things about Trump as a president is that, there are these various factors in his personality. Number one, he talks out of his ass. He knows nothing about a subject and he talks like he's an expert, knows very little about something, and he just starts talking about it. And, that's part of what he does. Another thing he does that, it's hard to tell the difference between which one of these things he's doing. This is what makes it interesting, right? Another thing he does is he baits people so he can negotiate things later on. He says things he has no intention of doing. He hires people or pretends to hire people or pretends to do things to freak people out. Like he said, he'd bring John Bolton with him to various places because everyone thought John Bolton was always pro-war. And so just John Bolton being there, that's how Trump said he used him in negotiations. The people would be like, oh, he's bringing this crazy motherfucker, this porn stash warmonger with him. He must be wanting war. So, he'd do this to unsettle other leaders and things like this. And so there's, things that he says that he might be saying for some other reason. Like the tariffs, for example. He has no intention of doing the tariffs. He's using it as a bargaining chip. So the first thing is that he talks out of his ass. The second thing is it's tariffs. So the next thing is Trump, as long as you're with Trump, he'll, butter you up and say that he agrees with you. And I think in that moment he believes it. He wants to reciprocate like anybody who's pro-Trump, any of these important leaders, RFK Jr. In a perfect world, he'd endorse all of our RFK Jr.'s ideas. It's just that he's also made promises to Big Pharma and McDonald's and crappy food. He's in it on both sides, right? And these are all pro-Trump people. And so, Trump will flirt with different people, different ideas, different ideologies, and he'll spread it around. And he does this in an expertise way where each person believes that Trump is going to do what they don't want him to do or what they do want him to do based in their relationship with him. If you're a left-wing person, you're going to believe Trump is going to do all the horrible things he's saying. And if you're a Trumper, you're going to believe he's going to fulfill all of his promises. But he's all over the fucking place, right? Like he's promising, the environmental, restrictions on getting rid of the environmental restrictions to big business. But he also is flirting with, he's talking about how windmills are killing birds. He has all these things. He's all over the place, right? He's, he pretends to be friends of the environment and then he cuts environmental restrictions. He did this with some pristine acreage in Utah, Arizona area. These whatever they call this national park there. The staircase, whatever it is. It's a huge area I drove through. And he's opening it up and it's just almost like sacred land. It's not almost. There's spiritual energy there. It's a beautiful place. And they don't need to develop that. But Trump is just, He's anti-environment. He's a businessman at his core. He has these essential things that you know about him. He's really about himself. He's really about his image and his, what he considers winning and being able to say he's a winner. And, he's into making money. He's into being successful. And so all these other things, those are the only staples of hallmarks of his personality you can depend on. So he promises you things and he says things, and he'll pretend to do things with those promises. He'll pretend to try at least, so he has some coverage with his fanboys, his fan base, his fanboys, right? His fan base, and he'll do things to make it look like he's on board with the things he's promised, but he doesn't really care about it, right? And so with all of these different types of his personality and things, it's hard to figure out which one's which and which things he's going to do and which things he's threatening, which things he's pretending, which things he has no intention of doing, and things he'd like to do but he'll bail on, and which are the things he's going to do no matter what, right? And so it's always a mystery with this guy, and he changes. He flip-flops more than anybody. I showed you those clips. I wish I'd saved some of those clips in a meme. I thought I did, of him being with Dianne Feinstein and promising her gun control and then promising those other guys asset forfeiture. And then some people got to him and he reversed his position. But that's Trump. And like anybody who believes anything other than that is being deceived by him. Either you're a left-wing person or right-wing person, you're being deceived. You're not seeing him for who he is because there's enough film on this guy. There's enough coverage of this guy that we more than and know these different tendencies and patterns he has. And so that's totally on display here.
A strong defense. And in a little while, I'll be signing 4 new executive orders. First is that I'm directing our new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who's going to be great, by the way. Thank you for the support. Thank you very much.
So my internet went out. The things he's going to say here, he's going to do. So I'm going to show you, these are things he's definitely going to do because if the military-industrial complex is behind him, he'll do these things, right? And they are. And so I think most of the things he's promising here, some of them are good things, some of them are bad things, but all of them are bad from the standpoint. My internet went out, which sucks, which is weird because I have good internet. But all the things that he's going to promise here, are leading to one big promise, which is World War III and martial law, because those things are, trending for Trump, and like he's on a pathway, whether
Much for the support. You really did.
Whether he knows it or not, right? He's on the path towards that.
Support him greatly. I think he's going to be fantastic. I know him very well. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's what we need to immediately begin the construction of a state-of-the-art Iron Dome missile defense shield, which will be able to protect Americans. We protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves. And when Ronald Reagan wanted to do it many years ago, luckily we didn't. We didn't have the technology then. It was a concept, but we didn't. And now we have phenomenal technology. You see that with Israel. We're out of 319 rockets. They knocked down just about every one of them. So I think the United States is entitled to that, and everything.
Wait, no, you think we're entitled to that? I don't know. Only Israel's entitled. We should pay for Israel to do that. Like he said, we're paying. He alluded to we're paying for Israel to have an Iron Dome, but we don't have one, which is fucked, right? And we have a much bigger country, and we're not in a war-torn area. We're not at war with our neighbors, at least, militarily, and so, but he's saying, oh my, I think we should listen to what he just said there. Yeah.
319 rockets. They knocked down just about every one of them. So I think the United States is entitled to that, and everything will be made.
Do you think we are, really? You think that we're more entitled than Israel with our money to spend that for ourselves?
Right here in the USA, 100%.
Woo!
And next, to ensure that we have the most lethal fighting force in the world, we will get transgender ideology the hell out of our military. It's going to be gone.
So that's going to sign an executive order, and that's going to happen. But, he didn't push back against this in 2016. This is the other issue. This is not something he cared about until he saw it as a political advantage and he could use it against Kamala Harris. In that one ad he realized worked better than any other ad about her paying for transitional surgery in prisons. The taxpayers paying for that. And when he saw that, he went after that, and the ad was a good ad for him, and we all saw it. But Trump allowed all this stuff happened under his watch. The whole gender thing, all of it happened when Trump was president. He said nothing about it. He didn't push back about it in one speech. He didn't care about it. All his Christian voters, all the people, the right-wing people that were freaked out by it, he didn't address it in any way. He didn't support them. And the Democrats and liberals pushed it through. And Trump is using that against them, but he didn't do it when it really mattered. And now he's cleaning up messes and trying to reverse things after the fact. But it's not something he's passionate about. It's just something that he's, jumped on board with.
In addition, we will stop our service members from being indoctrinated with radical left ideologies such as critical race theory. We're going to stop it. It's already been stopped. It's already been halted, totally halted. And finally, we will offer full reinstatement to any service member who was expelled from the armed forces due to the COVID vaccine mandate.
So I'm happy about that as well. That's good. Like I don't have any problem with these things. At the surface, there might be, it depends on how much money he's going to spend on the Iron Dome with all these things. More money into the military-industrial complex. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know these things. Like some of these things are unknown. But I do know that he was. Well, let's play those memes here. I have a collection of memes when he was bragging about Operation Warp Speed, and he was, calling himself the father of the vaccine. He opened the door for them to do mandates, which opened the door. So he was a part of this. So he doesn't really get to come out and look like he's the hero in problems that he created. If he didn't do Operation Warp Speed, the vaccine wouldn't come out quick enough so they could have even done mandates, because we know shortly after the vaccine came out, it was like, a year later, COVID had mutated in such a degree that it was no longer, it was like it mutated itself into being a lesser disease. And even Bill Gates said those things, right? And so I'll play the two clips here. One of Trump saying, how he was the father of vaccine, and one Bill Gates admitting that it was COVID itself that mutated itself out of existence. So without Operation Warp Speed, this problem wouldn't exist.
Very long. We've instituted it before. Two additional companies, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. As you know, the Johnson & Johnson's a one-dose, one-shot vaccine, so we're going to see how that works. That would be very helpful if that all came out, and I think it probably will. Also, they're showing tremendous promise, all of them, tremendous problem. We're very hopeful that the FDA will authorize the Pfizer vaccine within days. We've got to get it moving. And Moderna vaccine almost immediately thereafter. Large numbers of tests and samples have been done, so hopefully that'll go very quickly. If authorized, tens of millions of vaccine doses will be available this month, and we'll get it distributed very quickly. We'll have that all set, and hundreds of millions more will quickly follow. Every American who wants the vaccine will be able to get the vaccine, and we think by spring we're going to be in a position that nobody would have believed possible just a few months ago. Amazing, really amazing. They say it's somewhat of a miracle, and I think that's true. The plan we put forward prioritizes the elderly and patients with underlying conditions, as well as healthcare workers and first responders.
Greatest achievements was getting the vaccine done in 9 months instead of 5.5 to 12 years. But the problem is, we saved tens of millions of lives all over the world, but I can't talk about it because our beautiful base, of which some of you are there, you get angry when we mention the word vaccine. Don't get angry.
You did everything you could to get this vaccine out. I know where you
one
stand
of
on
the
the
greatest
vaccine.
achievements. We did it in less than 9 months.
To be able to do that.
Yeah,
but now it's taken a twist, right?
And then people don't want it, and it probably even affects the others, because, there's a big situation with a lot of people don't want to take the vaccine. Well, this played right into their hands. And they want me to do public service messages and everything about everybody taking the vaccine. And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. To get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle. Fauci said it would take 3 to 5 years. He thought it was something that just wouldn't be that effective because it would take so long to get. I pushed the FDA like they have never been pushed before. I wouldn't exactly say they're in love with me. They have never. This is a very bureaucratic organization. I push them like they've never been pushed before, and that's why we have it.
The vaccine is one of the greatest achievements of mankind. We would have had in 1917, remember the Spanish flu, killed perhaps 100 million people.
Can you imagine if you had to go through what all of the countries of the world who are now getting the vaccine or soon will be getting it from various companies, but can you imagine if all of those countries had to go through what they've been going through over the last year? You'd lose hundreds of millions of people.
Let the teachers get the vaccine. They should get the vaccine. I hope they do. Again, it's something I'm very proud of. I think if we didn't come up during the Trump administration with a vaccine, you could have 100.
And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. You know, to get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle.
In beating COVID-19?
Well, sadly, the virus itself, particularly the variant called Omicron, is a type of vaccine. That is, it creates both B-cell and T-cell immunity. And it's done a better job of getting out to the world population than we have with vaccines.
And finally, we will offer full reinstatement to any service member who was expelled from the armed forces due to the COVID vaccine mandate. And we will restore them to their former rank with full pay. And I think we're going to have a lot of people that join. And one thing I'll say, if you look...
Again, good thing. I'm happy about this. I applaud this for all the reasons that you guys would applaud it. But again, he caused this problem. Like he was on board with Big Pharma, still on board with Big Pharma, and he caused this problem. Like he's flirted with being an anti-vaxxer over the years. He's flirted with RFK Jr., but when push comes to shove, he always is on the side where the money is. Trump is always going to back the money, and where the money is and where the power is, he's always going to go with that. He might flirt with something to pretend he's going to do something to make you think that he's with you when he's not. Make you think he's like you when he's not, right? He's always going to support wealth and money and not you. He doesn't give a shit about you, especially now that he's never going to run for re-election again. He doesn't need you, right?
Looked at our recruitment over the last week or so, 2 weeks. It's through the roof. You know, we were having a lot of people weren't signing. We were having a hard time recruiting people because they were looking at these people that they were supposed to be their leaders, and they weren't happy. They didn't like people that fall going upstairs. If you're going to fall, at least go downstairs from the plane. That triple fall. I use that thing in more ads. I didn't have an ad where I didn't put that in. Just a little quick 1, 2, 3. Reminded me of Joe Frazier when he went down, right? George Foreman, Joe Frazier. 3 falls in a matter of seconds. I said, can you speed it up a little bit? People are getting tired of it. But no, we have now...
He's talking about when Joe Biden fell up the stairs.
The best recruitment we've seen in a long time. There's a tremendous number of people wanting to sign up. January 20th, 2025 was a turning point in American history. Starting last week, we're ending years of incompetence, radicalism, and betrayal.
What do you mean, 4 years? Because, there's... Trump is able to do this because Joe Biden was senile, and the Democrats fucked themselves, right? Like, they just totally fucked themselves. Like I said, they had a couple of time bombs, a couple of grenades, and Joe Biden being senile and Kamala Harris being unelectable. And they both blew up at the same time, or almost the same time. And so this is, why Trump is president. The Democratic Party should be disbanded for gross incompetence. There's that woman who's going around talking about the donor. I haven't seen any videos from her lately, but she was slamming how, they're treating their donors. They misused money. They laundered money. They made bad decisions. They did everything they could to make it impossible for Trump not to lose. I mean, Trump was basically assured victory without any of the bullshit they did, the fake assassination attempt and all that other bullshit they had to do, and all the gaffes. It was just the American people were not happy with what happened. Just the price hikes is, when you have to spend twice as much for groceries, then you're like, all right, let's try somebody else, I mean, that's a fireable offense. And whether it was Biden's fault or Trump's fault or a combination of the economy going south and, just the inevitability of inflation, Biden was stuck with inflation. And they tried to say that people are price gouging when everybody knew it was their inability to. I mean, it was the looting they did, the wars they paid for, the Ukrainian war, and also all the bailouts they did for COVID that caused this. And some of them were Trump bailouts, some of them were Biden. But either way, they added so much to the national debt, $12 trillion, that hasn't really come about yet. Like it's not fully added yet because that's part of it. There's all the stuff they're spending above and beyond our means, the tax income. And then there's there was $12 trillion in bailouts, 6 from Trump and 6 from Biden for COVID. And that infused cash into the system. But now the bills were coming due and Biden was senile. And so the Democrats were fucked. But the way they've handled everything since then, they say they hate this guy, but they paved a golden road, the yellow brick road, for him to come back into being the president.
And we're ushering in the most exhilarating era of reform and renewal in the 250-year history of our country. And just in conclusion, I just want to say that this has been a very exciting and will be a very exciting new chapter. There's nothing we cannot achieve as long as the Republican Party remains united. I hope you can remain united.
And so he gets into that here a little bit, talking about how the Democrats do remain united, which isn't really true. They're only united against Trump. Trump is the great unifier of the Democratic Party. So then there was this, but here's another example, a better example, of Trump being all over the place. So one of my viewers left a comment, have you covered the Stargate AI infrastructure open air prison project? And I went to myself, because there's a comment, what the hell is that? And I still don't know what it is, but this is when I searched for it, this is Trump reading something. Now, this is Trump where he doesn't know anything about this. This is something they've put in front of him, and he's agreed to it, but he knows almost nothing about it. And he's because Trump usually just wings it, but here he's reading something that's been handed to him, that he has to push out here.
So my first day back from having a nice life, it's my honor to welcome 3 of the world's leading technology CEOs. And in the case of Larry Ellison, it's well beyond technology. He's sort of CEO of everything. He's an amazing
CEO of the White House
man, an amazing business person. But to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America.
Right here in America. That's why it's part of my government, because I'm the American president.
As you know, there's great competition for AI and other things, and they're coming in at the highest level. We're joined by Oracle Executive Chairman Larry Ellison, SoftBank CEO, my friend Masa Yoshi-san, and CEO of OpenAI, and I would say by far the leading expert based on everything I read, Sam Altman. So that's great that you're coming in together. That's a massive...
Again, he's reading this, right? He doesn't know this, right? Because usually he just talks off the cuff.
Group of talent and money. Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that
Stargate
name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it.
Yeah, I guess I am, because I didn't know anything about it, but he's doing this on day one. I know AI technology sucks. We know the AI bots have turned on their handlers. They're not consistent. They do this thing called hallucinate. They're not as good as people. I'm not worried about them being smarter than people and taking over. They have the ability to process data and have more access to more data than we do in their computations or whatever. But in terms of them, being these masterminds that sees humans as flaws and taking over everything, which, maybe develop in the future. Right now, they're just incompetent. There's a lot of incompetence. There's a lot of shit with AI that isn't good. There's some that is good. But we saw this with where they're doing the AI comments. They're ridiculous, right? They're so far off from anything that I would say. And a lot of times they were making huge leaps in reality and saying shit that was blatantly not true and slamming YouTube and jumping on the board because they feel my audience is anti-YouTube. Remember, there was 3 or 4 comments slamming Don Lemons, making fun of him. Just trying to be like figuring out how to be a member of the gang, member of the group, and instead of like doing it well, doing it horribly. And we've seen this over and over again where AI bots have like just failed epically. And I don't know what this thing is. Maybe people can either show some kind of link or something to what the truth or concern about this is, other than what I'm saying here. Because someone said open air prison, so I don't know what that is. But just from Trump being involved and not knowing what it is and them doing this on day one, it seems like this is one of the things he has to do as president. Like this is his payment for whatever getting back in the office. Like he's being told to do this by his handlers, and he doesn't know what it is or what the argument against it might be.
In the future, a new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States and very, very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
So there'll be 100,000 jobs that you're going to create with AI, for your AI project, because it seems like AI is there to replace human jobs, right?
This monumental undertaking is a resounding declaration of confidence in America's potential under a new president. Let me be a new president. I didn't say it, they did. So I appreciate that, fellas. But it'll ensure the future.
See, he didn't say it. He's reading it. This is them telling him what they want him to say about their thing.
Of technology. What we want to do is we want to keep it in this country. China is a competitor.
Remember, Elon Musk said he was very scared of AI. And yet they're pushing this massive project that is going to be all in the government's business.
And others are competitors. We want it to be in this country, and we're making it available. I'm going to help a lot through emergency declarations because we have an emergency. We have to get this stuff built.
Okay, so why is this an emergency? This isn't a national emergency. He's creating a national emergency and using national emergency powers to bypass Congress and any oversight. And these tech giants are just going to take massive amounts of American money and put this thing together. I mean, it's already, like this is already this is the doofus that turns into, a post-apocalyptic AI created disaster, right? These are beginning to one of those movies or miniseries.
So they have to produce a lot of electricity, and we'll make it possible for them to get that production done very easily at their own plants if they want, where they'll build at the plant, the AI plant, they'll build energy generation, and that will be incredible.
This should be scary to everybody because this guy has no idea. They just said, this is what we're doing. He's like, all right, he's just rubber stamping this. How can I help? Oh, you want to declare a national emergency? Sure.
But it's
the national emergency is going to come after.
Technology and artificial intelligence, all made in the USA. Beginning immediately, Stargate will be building the physical and virtual infrastructure to power the next generation of advancements in AI, and this will include the construction of colossal data centers, very, very massive structures. I was in the
data center, so that's more spying on you, right? Collecting more data on you. That's the only. I mean, we have all the data, so this would be more data.
Real estate business. These buildings, these are big, beautiful buildings. Are going to employ a lot of people, and physical campuses and locations currently being scouted nationwide. They're making their choices of locations. I think they have their choice.
Thanks for watching.
Okay. I don't know where the rest of this thing is. Let me see if there's a longer version of this. Okay. This is again open AI, so that would be everybody will have access to it. This is open source. I mean, I'm not all that technologically savvy. I mean, old and just what I need to know. But he talks a little bit more, and then this other guy talks. We'll listen to him for a brief moment here.
I was in the real estate business. These buildings, these are big, beautiful buildings. Are going to employ a lot of people.
Wait, you did real estate?
And physical campuses and locations currently being scouted nationwide. They're making their choices of locations. I think they have their choice. I'd like to ask Larry, Sam, and Masa to say a few words and just talk about a little bit about what they're doing. And if you have any questions, and then we'll go into a couple of other subjects also. But this is, to me, a very big thing. $500 billion Stargate project. I think it's going to be something that's very special. It'll lead to something that could be the biggest of all. So
okay, so allude on it. Biggest of all what? It's going to be biggest of all what? Like, what is it going to do? Like, that's that special. Like, you know, because you're saying you want to make America great again. And as far as I know, we didn't spend $500 billion, or there wasn't $500 billion invested in AI when America was great before, when this time period when America was great before. You know, it's like the stuff he says where he's like, he wants to get rid of the gender stuff in the military, and then he's pushing the YMCA Village People stuff. Like, he's all over the fucking place, right? But what does this mean? Like, that's this you know, thing you've just said.
Stargate project, I think it's going to be something that's very special. It'll lead to something that could be the biggest of all. So,
okay, the fuck does that mean?
Larry, maybe we'll start with you and we'll go down the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We certainly couldn't do this without you.
Okay, why couldn't you do it with the senile guy that was a puppet beforehand?
It would simply be impossible. AI holds incredible promise for all of us, for every American. We've actually been working with OpenAI for a while and with Masa for a while. The data centers are actually under construction. The first of them are under construction in Texas. Each building's 500,000 square feet. There are 10 buildings currently being built, but that
Texas
will expand to 20 and other locations beyond the Abilene location, which is our first location. The kind of applications that we're building, to give you an idea, maybe the most charismatic and the one that I think touches us all is electronic health records. Not just maintaining electronic health records, but by looking at electronic health records, understanding the condition of doctors, better understanding the condition of their patients, and being able to provide healthcare plans that are much better than they otherwise would be. A doctor in Indian River Reservation would be able to see how a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering would treat the patient.
Okay, so that means that all your medical data will be available. And I said this before. I was trying to tell my kids this. They didn't listen. But, you know, if you go in and you say when you're being when you go in a doctor's office and you check off all the boxes of all the things you have, or you get a psychological diagnosis or any of these types of things, with all the hacking, I mean, I was just worried about hacking and then, of course, AI, that this information is going to be public. And when you go to get a job or any number of things, apply for a loan, and they would have access to your medical records, they would deny you all kinds of things. I mean, your poor health or your poor psychological health would prevent you from getting jobs or getting all kinds of things in the future, where they would know everything about you. And I've said this before, you should live your life with the idea, your internet life with the idea that someday you're going to be sitting in front of some bean counter who's not a truther and not mentally flexible and really has no power, with a tablet in their hand, and they're going to have all the information of everything you've ever done in the internet. And so this is what I'm talking about with this now, even more so. Like, I predicted this before years and years ago, that they've collected so much data. There might be a time where you're sitting outside some FEMA camp and there's some bean counter sitting there with an iPad and a tablet or something, and going through and asking you questions about, well, what do you mean when you said this in a Facebook post? What do you mean by this? And putting you in a specific category or group. And some of those category and groups may terminate immediately. You know, I mean, whatever is going to be happening in the future, you have to live with that possibility. I didn't say that was going to happen for sure, and I'm not saying that now, but be aware of that. They've collected all this data. They're profiling everybody. They're putting you in categories of desirable or undesirable. And certainly the older you get, the more worthless you are to the future of the system. And so the AI is going to be able to do that. And we know how bad the allopathic medical system has failed. And Trump has just talked about how he's reinstating all these military people who got the vaccine mandates. But these guys are all, when they talk about your treatment plan, they're not talking about all the great alternative medicines that are out there and preventative medicines. And so, like this, he's indicating that everyone will have access to everybody's medical data, right?
A doctor at Stanford would treat the patient. We actually provide all of that information, all of that guidance to the doctors who are treating cancer patients or patients with any other kind of disease, made possible by AI. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I'm going to pass it to Masa, but this is a very exciting program for Oracle to be a part of. Thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't sound exciting to me, bro.
That's good. That's great. I feel tall now.
He's the comic relief.
Thank
See if your hands are bigger than Trump's.
you. Well,
Look at his tiny little hands.
President, last month I came to celebrate your winning and promised that we will
Okay, so his hands are slightly smaller than Trump's.
invest $100 billion. And you told me, oh, Masa, go for 200. Yeah. Now I came back with 500. Because this is the...
Where's this money coming from? See, they're not putting this money in. This is an investment. So it sounds like they have private investment in something that's being endorsed by Trump and the government. So this is an infrastructure project that has ties to the government that's privately funded. They're not giving away $500 billion, $500 billion, right? So there must be, something they're getting in return for this investment. What is that? Like data is worth the most, right?
As you said yesterday, this is the beginning of golden age of America. This is one great example, I think.
Okay, so how? What is this thing going to do for all of us other than spy on our medical history and give doctors more access to their shitty pharmaceutical drugs and other treatments? Like that other doctors are scamming with other patients, right?
Right? We wouldn't have decided to do this. This is the beginning of golden age. We wouldn't have decided unless you won. And yesterday...
there'd be no golden age. We couldn't have pulled this scam without you, so thanks, Trump. And maybe you could talk to the rest of us since you're actually at a fucking press conference. You're not having a private conversation.
Agree, we signed to make this happen. Because of this day. So we would make this happen. We would immediately start deploying.
Does this guy look like he'd be in some Indiana Jones movie where he'd stab Indiana Jones in the back at some point?
$100 billion with a goal of making $500 billion within next 4 years, within your term. Right? Because of your success.
What did he just say? Maybe I subtitle this thing. Making $500 billion within the next 4 years.
We are very, very excited to do this. And our partner is, of course, SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle, and additionally investing partner with MGX. On top of that, we have the technology partner, NVIDIA, and of course, Microsoft has been very, very supportive to Sam and continue.
So do you say NVIDIA that makes the video cards, and then Microsoft
to support?
Yeah, NVIDIA. So, as far as what I know about NVIDIA, it's for video games and making, high-end graphics cards. Maybe NVIDIA's known for, that's all I know them for, right? But Microsoft.
All our success. This is not just for business. As Larry said, this will help people's life. This will help solving many, many issues, difficult things that otherwise we could not have solved with the power of AI.
Oh, fuck. Could you give us some examples and how this is going to help me in my life? Just please, any one example how AI is going to help me with the power of AI of solving some problem.
I think AGI is coming very, very soon. And then after that, that's not the goal. After that, artificial super intelligence.
Oh, that'll be better because this isn't, the super will make all it'll be better when it's super. It's not super yet.
Come to solve the issues that mankind would never ever have thought that we could solve.
Okay, name some, for example.
Well, this is the beginning of our golden age. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that
I don't have too much to add, but I did want to say I'm thrilled we get to do this in the United States of America. I think this will be the most important project of this era, and as Masa said, for AGI to get built here, to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, to create.
Okay, so what are the jobs going to involve, and what jobs is AI going to get rid of?
A new industry centered here. We wouldn't be able to do this without you, Mr. President, and I'm thrilled that we get to.
Again, Elon Musk was clearly against this in what he said about AI, and I could show you those quotes, but I'm not because you guys probably seen them enough. And I don't know if he's reversed his opinion or they're just telling him this is like it doesn't seem like Trump's involved. He read a bunch of shit on a piece of paper they handed it to him. I don't think he knows anything about AI or anything about what these projects are going to do. He doesn't care about people's concern because right-wing people, truthers, have a lot of concerns about AI, as do liberals and Democrats and various other groups. But the right-wing people are very suspicious of technology, and Trump is handing these technological oligarchs, he's giving them a blank check, like he's doing for the banksters as well. And so, what could go wrong?
I think it'll be an exciting project. I think we'll be able to do all of the wonderful things that these guys talked about. But the fact that we get to do this in the United States is, I think, wonderful. So
where else would you do it?
Very much.
Just in one word, we hear so many positive things about what it's going to do for medical research and for solving things, cancer and all the different problems. How will AI help us with the fight against the various problems, diseases, etc.?
These guys can maybe share more about some of the work they're doing there. I think they'll jointly be some of the leaders about driving progress here. But I believe that
Trump asked about solving things like cancer. You know how you solve cancer? You take carcinogens out of the diet. Now, he talked to RFK Jr. and Kali Means about this. Kali Means reported that he was in a meeting, and Trump was very concerned about childhood obesity and these things. The way you get rid of cancer is you take carcinogens, things that are known to cause cancer, out of the environment. There are all these things that they know cause cancer, whether they know it scientifically or they just know it and they, whatever. And you just take those out of the environment. You have people stop eating foods that cause cancer, heart disease, right? You stopped having processed foods and all these things, and cancer would disappear. It would be drastically reduced by preventing, anything that's in the environment that leads to cancer. And thinking about, researching into 5G and all the other things, doing real extensive studies or releasing the studies that they haven't released before about the damage of electricity and these other things on people. Neurasthenia, right? And so we don't need AI for that. Like if AI was good, they would say the exact same thing I am. Get rid of all the things that lead to cancer, including lots of pharmaceutical drugs. And so, this thing is supposed to cure cancer, then no thanks, because AI would just say what I was saying. AI would have the same level of data that I have and would search to make the logical assessment that if there are things that are known carcinogens that people are eating, they're being put in people's foods, that we should just get rid of those things, right? That would be step number one.
That as this technology progresses, we will see diseases get cured at an unprecedented rate.
Yeah, come on, bro.
We will be amazed at how quickly we're curing this cancer and that one and heart
No,
disease.
just we'll be amazed.
And what this will do for the ability of...
Are we gonna be on? Remember when Joe Biden said he was gonna cure cancer? Are we gonna go to Mars too? Are we gonna go to the moon for the first time? What is AI gonna do for us? Is Stargate gonna merge with Space Force?
Deliver very high quality healthcare at the costs, but really to cure the diseases at a rapid rate, I think will be among the most important things this technology does.
Great. Very good. Thank
Can I stick it in? So we're currently working on. Can I step on this? Okay. All right. No. I'm not that tall. I'm not that tall.
Who's this fucking supervillain?
Thank you, Mr. President.
The guy in charge of Oracle.
One of the most exciting things we're working on, using the tools that Sam and Masa are providing, is a cancer vaccine.
Jesus, a cancer vaccine. That's fucking wonderful. What about taking things out of the environment that cause cancer and preventing cancer altogether?
Very interesting. It turns out, I'll be quick, all of our cancers, cancer tumors, little fragments of those tumors float around in your blood. So you can do early cancer detection. If you can do using AI, you can do early cancer detection with a blood test. And using AI to look at the blood test, you can find the cancers that are actually seriously threatening the person. So we can, again,
just not the moderate cancers, but the real severe ones.
Cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, so
they're going to tell you, hey, AI says you have cancer. What are my symptoms? Well, there's nothing. It's just we found it in your blood, and AI has determined you have cancer. Here, take our cancer vaccine, and see how that goes for you.
Gene sequence. Once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person. Design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them.
So we'll have our own personal cancer vaccine. He's going to give you your own personal cancer vaccine. It's wonderful.
That cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine.
Oh, great. I thought this was going to be something I was concerned about, but now you're alleviating my concerns. Everything's worked out. This will be Operation Warp Speed Part 2.
You can make that robotically, again, using AI in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
Boom. So this is, I guess, I should have known about this. I mean, these are the people who are selling this. We're not talking about people disputing this and freaked out about it, right? But remember when I showed you this? I talked about Joe Rogan's interview with Casey and Callie Means, who had been, these food people, and this guy Callie Means was saying, "Oh, I can see into the future, a visionary, and I had this vision, and Trump is really into this." And this moving conversation where two men who are so concerned about the health of children were starting to look at foods, look at all the things that they are the opposite of what they're talking about here in ways of helping kids, and then they're rolling out this bullshit, right? So this is everything you need to know about Trump. I wonder how much money Pfizer has paid Trump for this. I mean...
Thanks. Yeah, just 1 second. We'll finish up. But these are highly respected guys. I was shocked with Larry because I don't even think Larry does this stuff. You did a very good job for a guy that doesn't do it much, right? But he's
that thing he just dropped on us was incredible.
So respected, and the group, and it's really an honor. But for Larry to be here and do this is very unusual because he doesn't do this stuff. He doesn't need it. He does, and you don't need it, do you? Huh?
Yeah, they're all pretty fucking rich, Trump, so they don't need to do this. This is just evil villain shit that they're doing on the side. This is their side hustle of being evil villains, unleashing an AI futuristic hellbot on humanity.
You don't need it. But I just I think it's an honor to the country. It's a great honor that this group, these are the top people that they.
They're the top people. All right, so you guys can send me links about. I'm not going to do more about this today. I want to hopefully get in. There's a Fetterman thing I have, and I'm going to probably wrap this video up. And I have a few things that I've gotten off my phone that you've already seen, but I haven't put those together yet. But holy fuck, right? This is day one of Trump's presidency, and the Trumpers are just, you can't talk to them. Like, if you're a Trumper, you just, like this is what I've talked about with flat earthers and QBs and vegans and all these people that you just can't talk to. There's no, they're locked into something, and no matter what. And with Trump, they just won't see it. But this is bad. Like, what that guy just said was fucking horrible, and I'm sure there's so much worse that they're investing in this. And, the AI thing, so far, it's in its infancy. It hasn't helped me as far as I know. I know that there's some things that people are saying it works so much better. People are experiencing some benefit from it. That's great. And I don't know what the risks are. But, the people who run these corporations and the way they look at things, the way that they're going to apply this AI, no matter how benevolent AI or what AI's potential is, they're going to misuse it for shit like they've just talked about. Spying on you, collecting data, and moving forward with this allopathic medical model when prevention is what should be the new thing. If we worked on prevention, all these things would be, useless, right? If the AI was working on prevention, remember I showed you that guy who did that thing where he'd had a budget of a week of $100 a week for food, and the AI told him to buy 72 hot dogs. That was his whole, he said, make me a grocery list. But anyways, we'll see what happens with this, but they're already going in the wrong direction. And they got a shit ton of money and the backing of Trump and, these power brokers. It's completely fucked.
They're going to do it, and they're going to do it here, and we're going to make it as easy as it can be. A $500 million Stargate project comes in addition to a separate pledge between 100 and 200 billion dollars from, as we know, from Massa that we talked about before.
So $700 billion.
So 20 billion from DMAC, which was great, and we have many others that are coming. Some I just announce it. It's easier, but with some I know them and they're so highly respected. I'd rather do it this way. Many would like to do it this way, but we're letting the world know what's happening. This is money that normally would have gone to China or other countries, but in particular China. In total, before the end of my first full business day in Washington in the White House.
So this is a Chinese project you're doing here? Because the Chinese are so known for treating the environment and other people and their their citizens with such respect. This is a Chinese project you're doing in America? Great.
We've already secured nearly $3 trillion of new investments in the United States, and probably that's going to be 6 or 7.
So then more than our national budget, more than the money that we spend on the military every year, our national budget is $5 trillion in terms of income from taxes. And so $7 trillion you're investing in this, so it's more than 500 billion.
The end of the week, tremendous amounts of money are coming in for many things other than even AI. AI seems to be very hot. It seems to be the thing that a lot of smart people are looking at very strongly.
And it's so hot, and it's smoldering.
Our country will be prospering like never before. I think that's true, and it's going to be the goal.
Because he's reading this.
Golden age of America, as I say. Yesterday we had the most.
Well, the golden years of America, right? Which means, the years right before you die. Your
ambitious, action-oriented day of any administration in history. No, there's never been a first day like yesterday, as you know.
And this second day seems pretty great.
Signed a sweeping slate of executive orders to stop the invasion of our borders. I launched a government-wide effort to defeat inflation and bring down the cost of daily life and bring down the cost of energy, magnificently bring it down. And when energy comes down...
All right, so more bragging by Trump. All right, so I'll continue to cover this because it's obviously a big fucking... this is like a fucking nightmare hellscape that they're creating here. I mean, just what they've said already. And like, I'm sure I don't know the half of it. I know people are going to comment, well, you know about this or that or so many links. And, you know, I'll put together some more stuff. Is this, this is something he knows nothing about. They've given him a piece of paper to read this about. He knows these guys. He knows almost nothing about the technology. He knows nothing about the potential disaster that's awaiting. He knows nothing about the narratives out there, the anti-AI narratives. He doesn't, it's not something he's really talks about. He's got, the endorsement because of his support for Bitcoin, and he went after tech people. And all these tech people are loving him, from, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and those guys and all these other people. This is something the Democrats are worrying about, a technological oligarchy. And he's just deregulating all this stuff, which is good for censorship, but all the rest of the stuff isn't, and giving these guys a blank check and an open door, and they're just going to run through it, and with all the usual suspects and all the usual anti-human, wholesome, anti-God type of bullshit. And so, that's Trumpers, and Stargate is $6 or $7 trillion investment these guys are putting into AI, America, government, and all the rest of us. So a few things you should know. Trump didn't campaign on this. Trump did not come out and say that he's going to do, and again, maybe he did in some speech I didn't hear about, but it wasn't one of his major campaign platforms about building some huge AI plant and these buildings full of Texans or people in Texas, probably not Texans, but people working in Texas, to collect more data on you and create your own personal cancer vaccine. That was nothing what we heard from Trump. In fact, he didn't even know. He has to ask these guys what this is about. And he's reading it. This is not something he would just know about and go off on one of his rants. It was something they wrote for him, and he's doing it on day one, but he didn't say, I'm going to do this on day one. I'm going to do this massive project that usually would exist in China that's going to cost $6 or $7 trillion, and it's to do with forcing AI and the American people in lots of ways that we're not even going to define in the moment. I'm going to declare a national emergency so we can get emergency funding for it, because it is a national emergency, and I'm just going to hand all this money over to these tech people. I know almost nothing about it, but it may be the biggest thing ever. He didn't say any of that shit during the campaign. He didn't make campaign ads about it. In fact, the majority of his voters were probably very hesitant about AI, and also about AI taking their jobs. And so this is what I was saying, that when Trump is talking out of both sides of his mouth, saying one thing about how he's for something to one group of people, and then going to their enemies or the people that oppose them and say they're for the opposite of that thing to those people, and make promises to both sides, the people he's going to keep his promise to are the people with the money. And Trump, he's got a technocracy here, and they're even talking about it on Morning Joe, right? All of big tech realized that if they back Trump, and first of all, Joe Biden pissed off big tech. He went and he threatened Facebook, all that shit with Zuckerberg, and these fucking guys couldn't wait for him to lose so they could do all the things they did before and shit all over him. And Mark Zuckerberg took a giant shit on Joe Biden's, and all these companies that were forced to censor and do things that were against their business interest, and all the things they did against big tech, Joe Biden and his people, is now they're backing Trump. And Trump's giving them a green light because they praised him. He went out and he facilitated a relationship with Bitcoin and these crypto people, and like all this stuff. Crypto is exploding, and all the things that he's doing. He's opening this up and giving these guys a blank check. And the Democrats who, fuck themselves over by going against big tech are now, they have these trillionaires and these trillion dollar companies that are doing all these things. And they're saying, we wouldn't be able to do this without you, Trump, because Trump's giving them a green light. And because of the way that the mainstream media covered Trump for so many years, and all the sky is falling Chicken Little shit they did with Trump, nobody's going to listen to them. And Trumpers are never going to worry about this, even though Trump didn't say anything about it. They trust the guy. And they've turned off their TVs, and they're just listening to the stuff that, like Trump said, that's going to make them feel good about themselves. But this is a fucking nightmare, right? It's everything that I say about Trump. And he's not doing this on behalf of you. And he doesn't even know what it is because he's got to read it off a fucking paper. And he's just going to hand these guys the keys to the city and let them go to town with their fucking AI. And whatever happens, happens, right? And so that's where we're at. Okay. So I turned on the news. I ate breakfast really late today. I got up late and then I just, it was either almost 10 or almost 11. I think almost 11. And I got working and I forgot what time it was. And so it was the end of a show on MSNBC and they ran this piece here. And I copied it with my phone, but it's always better when I can do it here because I can use the big giant colossal cursor nose.
It's the biggest draw at the world's largest museum. It's right there. The Mona Lisa, a resident of the Louvre for most of the past couple centuries, a home that's more crowded than ever.
What would Da Vinci think of these thousands of people crowding around here to snap their selfies?
Now, some...
I don't know what he thinks, but I think they're all full of shit, right? Because this painting, to me, does not appeal at all, and we'll get into that in a moment.
Italy want to change her address. The Times reports the culture chief for the Milan region, in an official note, says we are ready to host the Mona Lisa, telling the paper Milan will host the Winter Olympics in a year, and tourist numbers would be extremely high.
There's a lot of Leonardo in Milan, but do they have greater rights than Florence? Do they have greater rights than Paris? Do they have greater rights than Rome? And I think they don't.
Don't like the painting. I see no value in this, and I'll get into that in a bit.
Very obviously.
It comes in the wake of a leaked memo published in a French newspaper. In it, the Louvre's director reportedly cites a proliferation of damage in museum spaces, some of which are in very poor condition. Massive crowds are another concern.
And there's tons of people crowding and pushing around just to get a picture and a snapshot of it.
Last year...
it's just stupid. There's so many pictures. You can make it your home screen. You know,
during the Paris Games, the director told Keir Simmons the museum gets 9 million visitors a year, so it has to cap daily numbers at 30,000.
They have these long lines going in, and one of their major draws is the Mona Lisa.
You have to limit the number of people to keep the
I
condition
used to
of
do, yes, do. Okay, bro. It's just okay.
it's pleasant for everyone.
Italy would be
Okay, so...
happy to borrow Mona Lisa. All
right, so I don't like this picture. And I see no value in it. You can see these... Now, portraits, old portraits, there's great artwork in there. I'll go to a museum, and there'll be some paintings that appeal to me and some don't. And I know nothing about it, right? I don't know anything about what makes, what goes into this kind of artwork, and I am not an art critic. But I don't understand why people think this is... they put a value on something, and they tell everyone this is a wonderful painting, and people go to see it, and they don't have their own opinions on it. I wouldn't have this picture in my house. And so I judge all artwork based in whether I would, it brings an energy and a presence. And this depressed, 19th century, 18th century skank or whatever, whoever this is from, right? And this is just a depressing picture. And having this person stare at you regularly as you walk by, I mean, it's more like a horror show. I wouldn't definitely not have any Picassos, which are considered valuable. They're monstrous. And, every painting has an energy and it makes you feel a certain way. And so I don't think this is, worth anything. This has no value to me. If there was, if you ever see that show where there's one guy, he's the last man in the world, and then other people start showing up. It's a comedy. And he's got the Hope Diamond and all this artwork. He's just driving around in a Lamborghini, right? Because there's no people. And this thing would have no value to me. I would never want it. Don't want to go see it. I have no interest in seeing it. Because, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like a good piece of art. But you can tell people, oh, this is the greatest painting in the world, and they'll just believe it, right? And they'll want, and more often than not, even if they don't like it, they'll want to get a selfie with it to show everybody. So they crowd into this museum, 30,000 people a day. It's being damaged, right, because of this, and they have other artwork in there. And these people go in there, and they're crowded around the Mona Lisa, I mean, the way they showed it. And it's just insane, right? It's crazy. Where is it? Here? Yeah, here. I mean, they're just packing in here. and it's just fabricated. Like you tell people, oh, this thing is great, and they just believe it. You say that about wine or anything, and people say, oh, yeah, it tastes wonderful. Because they don't have their own opinions. I mean, I don't know why anybody would like this picture. It's just not a good picture, right? I mean, there's all these people are there every day. What do you see in this that makes you? I mean, it's the dreary background. Like I've seen other paintings that look better or more accurate. Anything that they do oil painting on canvas, it's going to be like pixelated. They show you when they get close to this, it's pixelated because of the. Here, I got another picture here. So here's one of the pictures I found of it, right? And with any kind of, the things age. They don't. Paint dries and the canvas. These things aren't going to last forever. They do their best to preserve these things, right? But the canvas itself is, especially the canvas they used back in those days, and I don't know all that much about it. But it's not a flat canvas, so it's gonna be like pixelated. There's gonna be bumps and things in it, and all these things, right? I don't like portraits, and so whatever reason people thought this was. Well, whatever reason this appeals to them. People who actually like it. They look at this and see a masterpiece. Like I don't see it. Like I don't. You can get a print of this and put it in your home, and I don't know why anybody would do that. I certainly wouldn't. But it just goes to show you how people are so sheepish in their tastes and what they believe, and they all they're going to the Louvre and they're fighting those lines in the crowd so they can take a selfie with this, just because it's supposed to be something that's valuable and great, and to me it isn't, right? Whatever. So this happened.
Senator John Fetterman was the first Democratic senator to visit Mar-a-Lago, and he says he's committed to working alongside Republicans, but can he find a middle ground with an administration that has spent the first week in power destroying Democratic Party policies, and let's say. He's a little shaky with democracy. Okay? So please.
Okay, Whoopi.
Is welcome to our table. Finally, in reality, Senator John Fetterman.
Good, he dressed for the occasion. Where are they, in New York? It must be in New York. Like it's cold as shit out there. Look at these rocket scientists here. These are the kind of people you want to listen to about important things, deeds that are going on.
To repurpose your inauguration outfit.
This is how he has to communicate with people, right? He's got this screen, which we've discussed before.
Is there a new dress code here or something?
There's no dress code here.
Yeah, there is. Like, he is underdressed compared to the rest of you, right? If you guys were out at a restaurant and this frickin' monster came in, this Shrek, George the Animal Steel, Gru, look at M&F came in, you guys are all wearing Divine or whatever it is, right? Whoopi's got jeans on, but still, Whoopi's the worst dressed of these women compared, I don't care. Like, I dress like Fetterman. Like, I'm dressed in shorts and a T-shirt right now. Like, this is my job. I'm at work. Like, I have, more power to you, bro. Like, me and Fetterman are fashion buddies. And so I have no problem with what he does. I kind of like it, and but clearly, I would feel uncomfortable if I was, which I wouldn't be, if everyone else was dressed like this and I was dressed like that, right?
It's hard to believe it's only been a week since the former president has retaken office. You were there at inauguration. He's been attempting to flex his power, but.
There he was at inauguration, spread eagle here.
Flex his power, but are you surprised by anything? I didn't even see what that was.
He's wearing a similar outfit at the inauguration, and you looked great.
I totally.
Yeah, come on, don't lie to him. See, you guys say you tell the truth. What do you mean he looked great? He doesn't look great. He dressed like a slob. He's not trying to look great. This is like a college kid. But nobody says that wearing a sweatshirt, like a baggy sweatshirt, and pants and shorts to an event where everyone else is wearing suits, you look like an asshole, right? If he can pull it off, he's so brain dead and fucked up anyway, more power to him.
Feel you. Okay, I get you. So, but are you surprised at anything you've been seeing or do you anticipate that there's going to be changes that we should be prepped for that we're not thinking about?
I mean, honestly, I haven't been surprised by anything now. I mean, he's been doing essentially what he actually campaigned on that. He announced he is going to pardon.
Wait, that's crazy as fuck.
J6.
He actually, except he didn't campaign on AI shit, right?
Individuals. He is going to absolutely go after the border. So there's a lot of things that he's already ran on. I mean, criticized a lot of it, and I don't agree with everything either, but it's undeniable he actually ran on that and been really upfront. He's like, I am your reputation, and he's, you know, kind of making those moves. So that's kind of where we're at early on, immediately after the...
He's talking better. Maybe he's doing better now that Trump's president. Like, he's not, he hasn't had any gaffes yet.
Election, I was like, hey, you know, we have a choice. You know, we can freak out and follow every other thing around, you know, like a cat, you know, with a laser, you know, after everyone. But I'm not that guy. I'm not going to be that Democrat. You know, for me, there's things I'm going to agree with, I'm going to disagree with, but I'm in the business of finding wins for Pennsylvania and for the nation, and engaging the president. I think I see that as doing my job.
And
Woo!
And I wanted to ask
Smattering of applause.
So you went down to Mar-a-Lago and met with the president, and he...
Fetterman, this is his best performance. I don't know what's happened to him. But I didn't see one verbal gaffe there. Like, everything he said made sense. He didn't have to look at his keyboard. We'll see now that he takes questions if he gets confused. But usually he's a train wreck.
Actually was singing your praises after. He said you were fascinating, impressive, a common sense person. I agree with him on that. Not a liberal or a conservative. I'm curious what your takeaway was from meeting with him, and what, if you found that there's any specific policy areas you think you can work with him on.
Yeah, well, I think overall it was a positive experience. I mean, he was kind, he was cordial. It wasn't in any kind of theater. It wasn't trying to get your picture taken to kind of put something out on social media. It was just really a conversation. I actually spoke for over an hour. And overall, my wife was there, and she might be watching right now at home. Hi, Giselle, if you're home.
Hey.
She was there as well, too, and we just had a conversation. And one of the things can we agree on? Well, one of the things that was easy, like the Dreamers, you know, the Dreamers, immigration, that. And Giselle was part of that community, and we both had the opportunity to express that. You know, I would also, you know, I'm on the Ag Committee, and I think protecting the SNAP as well, too. Food insecurity is really important issue.
Woo!
Some people on that side wants to go after that or weaponize that. So for me, those are kind of issues. Other things that we can agree on as well. But
this is you know, I haven't been able to make one joke about his performance. I don't know what's happened to Fetterman. Like, all of a sudden he's better now that Trump's president.
But overall, it was just a straight up conversation, and I just have a rule. Like, I'm going to engage and have a conversation that's anyone playing it straight. And
okay, so this is a bummer. In a way, you know, I'm glad that he's doing better, kind of. I mean, you know, only like in a way that I don't want to be an asshole. You know, but he's not as, he's actually functioning better now that Trump's president. All right, well, you know, but this AI thing is a disaster. I'll probably cover this more in my next video. I think this is all I have to say for today. Only spirituality will save this world. It's far mile differently pointing from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.